The 29-year-old Sydney woman was travelling on the New England Highway between Scone and Aberdeen when her car was allegedly clipped as another vehicle attempted to overtake her. When she approached the driver of the Datsun, he allegedly went to the boot of his car and pulled out a shotgun. Police say 2 shots were fired, the second hitting the woman in the back of the head as she ran. A semi-trailer driver who witnessed the incident tried to ram the man's car as he fled the scene. The woman was taken to Scone Hospital but was released a short time later. Fearing the gunman would strike again, the TRG and SWAS joined local police in a search.
We've now ascertained that there are, apart from a shotgun being missing, 2 .303 rifles and some ammunition missing from a house that we know this person was at earlier in the evening.
Police scaled down the operation at dawn. Shortly after midday, detectives left Scone Police Station on an urgent call to Merriwa, about 60 kilometres to the west. It's understood police were in telephone contact with the gunman through a third person believed to be the man's father. Arrangements were made for the man to surrender to police at an undisclosed location. However, after waiting for more than an hour, anxious police received a telephone call from Merriwa Police Station. The man had apparently abandoned a previously agreed plan, choosing instead to drive to Merriwa, where he quietly gave himself up.
Yes, he came here under his own steam, knocked on the door and told the police that he was the fellow that they were looking for.
A police search of the vehicle uncovered personal effects including a quilt and a map, but no sign of any firearms. Police said the man was calm and quietly spoken during a brief interview when he spoke to detectives from Muswellbrook and Scone. However, his movements after last night's shooting incident are still sketchy. He was taken to Scone Police Station shortly after 3 o'clock for a further interview, after which it was expected he would be charged.
The profit is the best ever in TAB history, after record sales of more than $3 billion. The surplus was announced after all running costs had been met and will now be distributed throughout the state's racing venues. The Newcastle Jockey Club's Broadmeadow Racecourse will receive a boost of more than $350,000 to its running costs. Cessnock Racecourse gets a $133,000 look-in, while the Beaumont Park Dog Track is nearly $100,000 better off. The newly opened Newcastle Harness Racing Club at Broadmeadow is one of the biggest winners, with an extra $280,000 to add to its coffers.
The Intrepid was purchased by police 2 years ago as part of a long-term plan to update the state's ageing fleet. It was envisaged that the 12.47-metre fiberglass vessel and its sister the Fearless at Broken Bay would be replaced over a 5-year timescale. However, a government report from the Police and Emergency Services Backbench Committee has called for a radical revisal of that plan. The report says the Intrepid and Fearless are considered too large for harbour work and too small for offshore activities, particularly in treacherous seas. With the loss of the Nelson Bay police boat Sea Eagle still fresh in the minds of police and coastal sailors in general, it's clear that the Intrepid's future is now uncertain. Water Police Sergeant Bill Nicholson says a steel hull vessel would be the most suitable replacement.
The steel ones have a little bit more capabilities than what these have got, in far as bad weather goes. At times there you often think, well, what am I doing out here? Or what are we doing out here? But as I said, the steel one's just that little bit extra and the capabilities a little bit better.
Newcastle did have an ocean-going steel hull craft in the slow-moving but reliable launch Stackpool. It went to Sydney for repairs last year and, according to the report, is still being refitted. With the police department funds unavailable for purchase of replacements in the short term, it's highly likely that the Stackpool is earmarked for a return to Newcastle. Talk of an appropriate replacement vessel for the Intrepid remains speculation. However, one thing is certain. Now that the government has admitted that this is the wrong boat in the wrong place, they will have no choice but to move it. Meanwhile, a spokesman for the police minister said replacing the Intrepid is low on a priority list that describes the state's 9 ocean-going rescue craft as well below the standards set for search and rescue operations throughout the world. And with every passing day, the chances of the Intrepid being put to the test and found wanting grows stronger.
That's just growing all the time. From February onwards, there's a lot of traffic goes north, and from end of this month, September through October, they all start returning back to Melbourne or Tasmania or Sydney from up north. And there is a lot more, we find, that is travelling through.
And ultimately that means, I guess, what, more people are going to get in trouble?
More work for us, yes, that's correct.
The strong message came from Professor Donald Morton, Director of the John Wayne Cancer Unit at the University of California. It's long been known that excessive sunlight can have dual catastrophic effect, lowering the body's inbuilt immunity and promoting the development of moles on the skin into cancerous growths. Early removal surgically can be a complete answer, but if the melanoma has deepened, its spores spread to other parts of the body, stimulating malignant growth in vital organs. Professor Morton says there is benefit in finding and removing internal tumours which have grown too big for the immune system to handle.
Meanwhile, the immune system is dealing with the seeds that nodule is throwing off. And that's the reason that many of these patients, about a third of them, will be long-term survivors.
Oncologists cannot stress enough the importance of early detection in the successful treatment of melanoma. Professor Morton even advocates monthly inspections.
And chart the moles that exist. And note those that are irregular in shape, that have irregularities in size, in color, that are elevated from the surface, and most important, that are growing, that are changing in size, that are itching, that are burning, that are bleeding. Those moles that change need to have the attention of a physician.
It's easy to see what the judges saw in Hannah McLeod. Although only 12 years old, she is both intelligent and attractive. After winning the Little Australian Kids Quest last year, Hannah was invited to enter the American equivalent. Competing against 50 girls from across the United States, Hannah did not believe she could win. After all, who's ever heard of an Aussie beating an American at what they do best? But win she did, and she knows why.
Well, it was judged on your poise, natural beauty and personality.
And did you have all that it took to get that prize?
I must have.
As well as her crown and towering trophy, Hannah's prizes include $400, a shopping spree, a fur coat and a $1,000 savings account. And when she returns to Los Angeles next year to crown the new winner, Hannah will meet some of America's top theatrical agents. For the moment, though, that doesn't excite her, because those she did meet this week asked a little too much. For years, most of the problem solving at BHP came from management, but now, using a technique developed in Japan 30 years ago, employees are encouraged to pool their knowledge and expertise to improve productivity and reduce costs.
The human involvement is very important, and that's one of the things that's been lacking over the years, is how people from the shop floor can participate in their own work area and to develop improvements or even other things that are related to their work environment.
The idea has been so successful that 9 men from the steelmaking, bloom casting and maintenance divisions have won a National Quality Improvement Award. The men found the company was losing $1 million a year because of breakdowns in the hydraulic system which opens and shuts the ladle to allow liquid steel to pour into the bloom caster. The men were able to come up with an answer to the problem, which will cost the company only $30,000 to $40,000 to implement.
They came up with an idea that it would be better to reduce the amount of pipe work, which and help subsequently the leak points, which had a number of advantages. One was to reduce the maintenance costs and the need for breakdown calls to make minor repairs, and the other one was looking at a better way to connect the hydraulic pipes and the hoses up to the ladle at the caster itself.
By tapping into employees' expertise, BHP believes it will improve its international competitiveness.
Overall, the total idea of the TQC, which this is only one of the parts of, will eventually improve our product and improve our availability of our supply, and also give our workers much better meaningful jobs in the industry.
A valuable arm to the Newcastle Hunter and Central Coast Racing Association is the Beaufort Club, and as tradition will have it, the club held its annual Spring Carnival Luncheon and Presentation Day on the eve of the NBN Cameron Handicap and Wednesday's Winfield Newcastle Gold Cup. While most talk centred on the two big races, attention was also focused to the awards, and it was Newcastle's leading jockey on 5 previous occasions, John Wade, who accepted the leading apprentice trophy on behalf of Matt Bravado and Bill Denmark, who rode 15 winners each during the season. It was no real surprise that the leading jockey for the year was once again Robert Thompson, and with 123 winners, collected his 10th title since 1978. Robert's award was accepted by a man who always wanted to be a jockey, Gary Harley. Max Lees broke the Paul Perry domination of the Trainers' Premiership, leading in 89 winners for the season and missing by a half a victory in breaking the Pat Farrell record. The syndicated horse Barracus was declared the 2-year-old of the year, and from 6 starts had 4 wins, including the Golden Goblet at Grafton. The Horse of the Year was won by Wyong's Lord Highbrow for the 2nd year in a row, and in 24 1989-90 starts, the Black won 3 races, had 4 seconds and 2 thirds, and improved his owner's bank balance by a whopping $541,128. The track at Broadmeadows shall be in fabulous nick for the 2-day carnival, and NBN's Gary Harley believes that the Cameron Handicap will be a close affair.
It appears there's going to be a big move for the Warwick farm-trained Spot the Rock. He's a very, very good galloper. Shane Diaz accepted the ride on him. Second favourite in the market at 4-1, but he is expected to challenge for favouritism, challenge Liverstone Lane for favouritism. I'm sticking with Liverstone Lane. His first up run was a beauty. Won the Gosford Cup back in May. He'll appreciate the long run home. I put Spot the Rock in for second. Very good race horse. He'll beat his peak now after 2 runs from a spell. And I put in for third in the race, the South Australian Cheval Cavalier. He has got excellent credentials, only 49 kilos on his back. He'll be running on at the right end.
Thieves smashed a glass panel on a side door of the Voca communications store sometime between 5:30 last night and 8 o'clock this morning. Inside, they snatched 4 facsimile machines from a display counter. Also collected in the raid, a telephone answering machine. The business operators estimate the total value of the haul at about $12,000. Just one of the top-of-the-range fax machines is worth about $5,000. However, the thieves may have trouble offloading their goods, especially when the potential buyers find out that the risk of detection is fairly high.
If the machines happen to require a service or spare parts, then the only place it's available is through us, and whoever happens to be using the goods naturally has to give us a serial number before we're prepared to do anything for them.
Diaz was in a mean mood today as he put the finishing touches on his preparation for tomorrow night's fight with Craig Peavy. Diaz doesn't speak too much English and prefers to let his fists do the talking when asked for a prediction about the likely result.
I'll say or serve. Pelear y ganar por knockout. Okay?
But talk of an early knockout won't worry Peavy. After a series of frustrating postponements, he's desperate to jump into the ring with a world-ranked opponent. And the Diaz rating of number 19 contender for the featherweight crown might not be the only thing that takes a battering.
My training's 110%, mate, and I'm just fit as a fiddle. I can't wait for the fight.
So confident is Peavy that he challenged the Brazilian to make the bout a winner-take-all affair. Diaz declined because his family relies on his earnings to survive.
He had a family to one boy, one girl, no?
That sort of motivation should make for a ferocious contest. Bruce Mackenzie, NBN News.
In July this year, furore broke out at Royal Newcastle after a report dated September 88 was uncovered, claiming a significant asbestos risk in the hospital. The Flint report noted danger zones in the McCaffrey and Nixon wings, ordering signs be erected and some staff to wear safety equipment. But this was never carried out. With the union suggesting a cover-up, Executive Officer Stephen Batts called an independent legal inquiry to find out why the findings were hushed up. Today, that inquiry named 2 men, Safety Officer Norm Pritchard and the then Building Services Manager Barry Gascoigne, both of whom still work at the hospital.
I don't think it was a matter of them making a conscious decision to ignore the report. I don't think it's a matter of commission. I think it's more a matter of omission.
According to the co-author of the inquiry report, Tony Deegan, the safety officer Pritchard made value judgments about the validity of the report, believing some of the recommendations weren't necessary. Further to this, the report states both Pritchard and Gascoigne were ordered by a superior not to erect warning signs. That superior has not been named. The hospital's executive officer, Stephen Batts, blames poor communication between administrative staff. But Mr Batts says there will be no sackings till the report has been studied in depth.
I'm just looking to the extent of the recommendations in the report, and I'm meeting with the unions and the people involved tomorrow to decide what action should be taken in the future.
The report noted there was no significant increase in health risks for workers in the hospital despite the inaction. Union leaders would not comment till they thoroughly examined the new information. Peter Ryan, NBN News. According to the New South Wales Shellfish Association, the Pacific oyster is in Port Stephens for good.
No way in the world you've ever controlled it in Port Stephens now.
In New Zealand and Tasmania, Pacific oysters have been accepted and marketed successfully alongside other oysters. But in New South Wales, it's illegal to cultivate them. At an open day at the Brackish Water Research Station at Salamander, growers called for a government backdown. But their hopes were dashed.
There's no simple answer. If there was, then the problem would have been fixed a long time ago.
Studies show 97% of Port Stephens growers have Pacific oysters on their leases, the highest rate in the state. Some farmers are losing 50% of their harvest to the invaders, a financial burden which is tough to carry.
Well, quite a few people have already gone out of business. There's several businesses in receivership. One was sold up recently, the last month. His plant and equipment sold up, and as a result of a liquidation sale or receiver sale.
Recent controversy over oyster poisonings has worsened grower woes. Meanwhile, the Shellfish Association says government must act soon to legalise the Pacific oyster, otherwise the local industry could be ruined.
It was the last chance for Hunter students to be chosen by Mary Lopez for the School Spectacular 90, the 7th giant variety show to be staged at the Sydney Entertainment Centre in November. Already 2,500 youngsters have been picked, including pupils from 11 Hunter high schools and 3 primary. These dancers already chosen from Belmont High gave a preview of what the spectacular will include.
There are more children from the Hunter in Spectacular 90 than there have been in the past, and in particular more solo acts. We've got a lot more individual performers this year than we've had before.
This afternoon, Mary was after specialised acts to add extra colour to the show that will reach an audience of 20,000. JJ and the Boney Boys, with 4 musicians from Cardiff High, were eager to impress. They were finalists in the statewide school contest Battle of the Bands. On a different note was Cardiff High Year 11 pupil Matthew Rigby, winner last month of the highest grade in the Australian East Coast Bagpipe Championships. Tylee Muxlow, also from Cardiff High, showed the skill which has made her a BMX world champion. 6 singers from Belmont High and their soloist from Belmont Primary impressed their discerning judge.
Wonderful musical and dancing abilities here, but I've seen some really unusual things this time. Great variety material, like we've seen here today.
About 300 teachers joined the protest meeting, along with similar gatherings in Sydney and Wollongong. The teachers will hold a 2-hour stop-work meeting on October the 10th, when they'll review the progress of talks with the government over trade-offs in working conditions for salary rises. The teachers are threatening to stage a 48-hour stoppage on October 16 and 17 if they're unsatisfied with the progress of talks. The cars collided on a comparatively good section of the highway about 10 kilometres north of Raymond Terrace. Police have been told that a northbound gold Falcon sedan veered across the road into the path of an oncoming red Falcon sedan at about 11 a.m. Port Stephens rescue crews worked to free both drivers while other emergency services remained on standby. A 60-year-old man thought to be from Queensland and a 41-year-old woman from Sydney were airlifted by the Westpac NBN rescue helicopter to waiting ambulances at Royal Newcastle Hospital. The man is in a serious condition, the woman stable. A 33-year-old male from Spears Point was taken by road to Royal Newcastle Hospital. His condition is also stable. The occupants of a third vehicle which slammed into the rear of the other southbound car suffered only minor injuries. Traffic on the highway was brought to a complete halt, but police were able to reopen one lane about half an hour later. Police inquiries are continuing.
The Christmas Day service was the last held in this church, so it was a celebration when the congregation returned to its regular place of worship. In the last 8.5 months, joint services have been held at the nearby St Peter's Anglican Church. This morning's message reflected on the new friendships that were forged.
You proved that though we love this place as a building dearly, the temple of God is indeed the people of God are.
It's taken more than $1 million to restore the Hamilton landmark. While work is now completed on the inside, it will be several months before the tower is repaired, the scaffolding removed and minor problems resolved.
The windows need repair and the roof proved its inadequacy in the last few days by leaking joyously. But it's great to be here, and indeed, it's a day of celebration.